The book that I chose to read was If You Want to Walk on Water, You've Got to Get Out of the Boat by John Ortberg. The general idea of the book was learning how to overcome obstacles and take steps of faith so that you can see God do extraordinary things in your own life. He, John Ortberg used a lot of different stories from the Bible and from his own life and from history to illustrate his various points. Obviously, the main story that he referred to was Peter walking on water, but he also spoke a lot about Joseph, about Lewis and Clark, about David, and about Elijah. And he used each of those stories to illustrate a different point that he was making about taking a step of faith and trust. Some things that I really liked about the book were that he was extremely thorough. He covered all kinds of different possible scenarios, different things that God has called him to do in the past, and stories that he heard from people in his life, and looked at these situations from every possible angle. He also has a very interesting sense of humor and is really, really blunt. There were some times when he would say things and I would get not offended, but I could tell that he didn't care if he offended his readers or not, and it made me laugh because he was getting his point across and it really illustrated what he was trying to say, but it really called me out, and it connected me a lot to what he was saying, and a lot of what he said really resonated with me in specific instances that I'm walking through right now. But he very much had a sense of humor about it and was not afraid to be funny, but then immediately be serious and say things that he knows nobody wants to hear but are definitely true. And he was also extremely realistic. A large section of the book was talking about when you take a step of faith and it fails. And that was something that I was not really expecting, because a lot of the time people talk about faith and they talk about how if you take a step of faith, God is going to pull you through it and it's going to be a great success every single time, and it's just not. Because sometimes God will call you to take a step of faith and then it won't work because God never wanted to use the success. God wanted to use the failure to teach you how to do something and teach you how to rely on him. So he talked a lot about that in the book, which I really liked. He's very upfront about what the end result of taking a step of faith can be and how unpleasant it is sometimes. Some of the things that I got out of the book were a very realistic expectation of what it looks like to be called to something and what happens if it doesn't go well. And there was also a lot of reassurance in the book about being scared to take the step of faith and failure. He talked a lot about insecurities and how being afraid of doing something is completely fine as long as it doesn't impact our willingness and ability to do it. God also used the book to point out specific areas of my life where I got very content and was not listening for him to tell me to take a step of faith, because I didn't like the idea of change in that particular area, and so that pushed me and challenged me a lot. But I really enjoyed the book, and I think I'm going to read it again.